My name is Nariba Shepherd.
And I'm Justin Arnett Graham.
And this is Terms of Service.
Good morning. Good morning, and quite the morning it has been.
More like cock-a-doodle-doo. Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to apologize publicly for sleeping through my alarm this morning.
You okay?
But I made it here before this part, so.
I mean, and that is what matters. It's been a minute, so I'm getting back into this excitement groove of it all because there's so much that goes into all of these episodes and recordings and, you know, promo and all of these things. So shout out to all of the people. But we are sitting down with a very dear friend of mine that I have known for, I don't know, how long have we known each other, Carlos?
I'd say upwards of 8 years.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, close to a decade.
Yeah. It's up there. Absolutely. Well, welcome, because I do not want to introduce you because I feel like you can do that all on your own and I can't speak higher of you, but let the people know who the smooth voice is on the mic.
My name is Carlos Matias. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Carlos. Good morning.
Yay.
Yes, absolutely. We're very, very stoked to have you. And
I mean,
we got to know.
what is your zodiac sign?
I'm a Libra.
Oh, and what does that mean for us?
It's my season. That's what it means.
Yes, I was just like, that
Libras
feels like it's happening.
are the sister sign of Aries, because my half birthday is the 15th of October. So yeah, anything that's like your sister sign is the exact 6 out from you.
Oh, great. Okay.
Libras are messy / mess adjacent.
All right.
Like, not necessarily always involved in the mess, but likes the aura of the drama of the mess.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I like to know.
Exactly.
You're like, if the tea has been spilt, I'm curious.
I'm definitely the
And,
one
like,
looking out the window. You know?
Yeah.
Like, let me see what's going on out
What's
there.
happening?
They also get the rep for being like indecisive, but I think that Libras know what they want. They're just so worried about if the people involved will like them after they make that decision. It's more like it's a very social sign.
Yeah, I would say that falls in line with a lot of my communication on day to day. Even like sending a text, I'll be like, how come they haven't responded? Did I ask the wrong thing?
Too many thoughts.
Yeah.
And
Lots of thoughts.
I think the reason that that like Libras and Aries are sister signs is because Aries don't have enough thoughts. They're just like, I'm doing it. And it should. And now I'm like, I feel like an evolved Aries is like, I'm doing it, but I understand the repercussions of my actions beforehand. So I still be popping off, but
Very nice. Very nice. So, my dude,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about your background and who the hell you are.
Yeah.
But also, a lot of people know this dude out here. So,
A little bit.
a little bit. You know. So,
Yeah. I
also your hat says best dad ever. So at some point, I'm going to need you to tell him.
that's the most important part of my life.
Sick. All right.
Yeah,
cool,
I was
cool.
like, that
Oh, we're
is-
going to talk about that. We could tangent on that all day long.
Oh,
so.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was born and raised on the southwest side, so Midway Airport of Chicago. Went to
Is that
Chicago
qualified
public
as
schools.
Cicero? Is that
I actually lived in Cicero for about 3 years.
Okay.
From like, well, maybe it was more like 5 years. From like the age of 9 to like 14 or something like that. So I was Chicago adjacent. Real
yes.
close, but still went to Chicago public school because my mother didn't want to move me out of the school near Midway, so it took a long drive down Cicero to get there. Went to Chicago public school for high school, did business school, and then like fell into working for tips by doing valet at the Hyatt Regency Chicago, which was like one of the worst jobs.
They'll get you.
Call 'em out. Yeah.
They'll get you.
I got a good story about that. The day that I quit, my manager, his name was Tebby. He was like this short, stoic man, very kind of Napoleon complex, Beverages.
Yes, absolutely.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
We had this very busy event in which everyone was rotating and taking cars down, and he had asked me to take this candy red Honda Accord down. At the time, it was like the most up-to-date Honda Accord, and I drove it down, and I ended up, long story short, I ended up sitting in someone's urine. Because listen, this is why I quit. So I ended up sitting in someone's urine. The event was for Alpha Kappa Alpha, and it was an old school event, and I got out and I was taking my little notes to make sure there was no damages on the car, and then I went to go feel my ass, and I was like, why am I wet?
Yeah.
And then I went and I was like, this is weird. I went back to the car and I'm like, oh, I see what happened.
Yeah.
So I go up to Tebby and I'm like, Tebby, I just sat in someone's urine. I think I need to go home and change. And he was like, take the next car down. And I'm like, you want me?
Wow,
Listen, you want me to sit? This was my first experience with toxic management. You want me to sit in someone's car after I just basically I feel like I soiled myself.
Yeah, right.
So I ended up quitting that day.
Yeah.
And then everything is like...
Yeah, I would have quit that moment.
Yeah, it was that moment. And I remember I was driving, my personal car was a 92 Honda Accord that my dad had given to me, stick shift, and I was in lower whacker making a U-turn, and then my axle snapped.
Bold.
Listen,
bold as hell. Okay.
So on the day that I
because if you
quit,
know, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, and after that, I think that's what drove me into the industry. I enjoyed working for Gratuity, and I was like, what else can I do? And I had this light bulb go off, and I was like, well, I can try to work in the restaurant industry. Yeah. So I started off at Frankie Scalapini, that was in the Bloomingdale's building.
That is absolutely correct.
I've heard of this place.
Yes, that is at 900. No, it does not exist. It is at 900 North Michigan Avenue on the 5th floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It was like
an OG Lettuce Entertain You spot.
Yeah, 100%.
What is the concept?
The outside in the middle of the mall was a pizzeria, and then the inside was the Scalapini, where they did their high-end pastas. The dining room was a little bit more dimly lit and put together,
and the bar was cavernous. Okay,
yeah,
dark as shit.
100%,
and I loved it.
Yeah. So Frankie Scalapini was where I got my footing, and I remember seeing the servers in there. They were making so much money.
A long time. I can tell you about that bartender.
They were making during the holiday season in the Bloomingdale's building. These thinking about it now, they were kids. These kids were making so much money, and I was like, wow, this industry is extremely lucrative. I just happened chance to get the job there, and this is where I also saw this separation of a little bit of what support staff and servers were doing inside of Frankie Scalapini. I feel like a lot of the support staff were mainly Spanish speakers who didn't speak any English, and I was put on the support staff there at Frankie Scalapini. And a part of me being an extrovert and loving to talk and engaging with the guests, because as you said, there are a lot of interesting people that walk through that building. A lot of people would say, why aren't you,
honey, a parade of personality.
Yeah, okay, 100%. And I would I would engage with the tables, and at the time the owner of that business, who I believe is pretty high up in Lettuce Entertain You now, looked at me and pulled me off of the floor and was like, you shouldn't be speaking with the guests. Ooh. Right. And I was like, but they're they're engaging me. He's like, yeah, but your job is to clean the tables and move quickly through the dining room. So a lot of, a lot of the relationships that I had with the mainly Spanish speakers, I see that they were in the shadows of everyone else, and they were the hardest working. The pizzeria in that place, the plates, first of all, one plate weighs fucking 5 pounds. Yeah. And then you're clearing plates and taking that white paper off of the, and then just resetting the table took so long, and these guys worked their ass off. And I worked my ass off when I kept my head down, but a part of me wanted something more, wanted to engage in what hospitality truly is, and we'll get around to that, right? And I had cut my hand polishing a glass one day. I still have a scar on my pointer finger here. And then I came into work the next day, and because I had gotten injured, I got let go.
What the
what?
Yeah, 100%. I cut my hand, and there was a guy training, and I was like, "Oh, cool. What are you training for?" He's like, "Oh, like server's assistant." And I was like, "Wow, that's cool. Like, I guess we're expanding." And then they take me to the back room, and they're like, "Hey, because of like irresponsibility and not paying attention, basically, we're gonna have to let you go." Illinois, the at-will state.
Yeah.
So that was my first taste of. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, but most of the people in the hospitality industry are really put in as pawns. You work your ass off. You're a commodity for an ownership that wants to see their business like churning, and they want to see you doing what you're quote unquote meant to do in your position in a restaurant. But I wanted something more, and I feel like that got me to where I am now. So after leaving there, I call this my first like real hospitality gig. I joined the team at GT Fish and Oyster.
Oh, yes, I know her.
The initial staff of GT Fish and Oyster were veteran all-stars, like cool people that were taking me under their wing and teaching me about wine. And they're like, "You have the personality for this. Let's get you worked up."
Yes.
And that's the first time I met like my brothers and sisters of the industry.
That's awesome.
That when they would touch tables, they would shine. People would leave that place and give them compliments because they were engaging. Hospitality in this day and age, I feel like, is missing that glow. A lot of places are missing that glow, and it's just about making the people that come into your place feel seen. And shout out to Jeff Espiritu, who's a nurse now. I'm not sure where he is in the world, but he's a person who like took me to Bijan's Bistro, and he was like, "We're going to Bijan's. This is going to be your first like after work like shifty, and we're gonna go get the Tony is what he called it, the rigatoni at Bijan's before they So like
before they reconcepted back into Bijan's, really but it's not the same Bijan's.
Exactly, it's not. I went in there. I was like, I'm gonna go in there and just like for nostalgia, and I went in and I'm like, am I in Miami?
Exactly.
Like what's going on at the space here?
Now you're going to Miami and nothing against anyone that works there or like the ownership or anything like that, but there's a certain point that it's kind of like this threshold that we all kind of have to acknowledge with our time in the industry, right? Like, I was telling Max this morning as we were arriving here, I was just like, God damn it. I was just like, we're older. I was like, we're older. And, we do crave that nostalgia because it was really impactful, right? And, when I say, like, I miss the old Bijan's, it's not to slight the new Bijan's. It's just saying, like, back in my day, I'm like, because that was the spot, that was the jam. And I shout out to everyone that I have known over the years at Cortino. I found out about Bijan's through them. And I met the crew at Cortino's because they were regulars of mine at Small Bar. So it was like this whole weird thing to where it's like, well, Justin, like, why are you like in there? I was like, because that place is also nostalgic for me. Okay. And now I know I don't want to say like the new generation, but like the newer employees that are there, and they're equally as great and
100%.
like super kind. And I think a lot has to be said about the transition of hospitality. That really just solidifies the concept of a hospitality centric business.
100%.
Before we like stray too far away from this, I'm just going to go ahead and say that we need to remember also that hospitality looks different now than it did 20 years ago, than it did 150 years ago. And I feel like the true root of hospitality is missing because tips have commodified how we do our job.
100%
and people
agree.
don't want to give more than they know they're going to get in return. And I feel like the way that the system has been set up for like tip service is in the favor of the business right now.
Oh, yeah.
And everything that they have done is in service of the customer. And as soon as they are responsible for making us happy and retaining us there, because it's no longer the promise of you can make so many tips, because that will no longer be the thing. Yeah. You now have to take responsibility for being hospitable to your own staff.
Absolutely.
And we can see that it's already changing how customers interact with us, because the prices of things have to go up on the menus to fluctuate the change that's going to happen from the customer paying our wages to the business.
Absolutely.
And I feel like some of the standards that businesses hold for customer service are going to have to change before we get into the no tip zone. And I think that's why people don't give as much, because the entitlement that we have instilled in people when they come into these spaces are high as hell.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we are paying the price as the people on the floor interacting with them on a day-to-day basis.
I'm going to touch base on that because that's very interesting. After GT Fish and Oyster, I went to work at Acadia.
Did you work with Casey Duty?
I did not.
Okay. Casey Duty is amazing. But you went to Acadia.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I joined the, that's a spicy one.
Yeah.
I joined the... I'll keep it. My experience there in terms of learning was absolutely outstanding.
That's how they get you, though. Yeah. But carry on.
So I owe it to two people. Michael Simon, who's back in the industry here in Chicago, actually working in that same space at a restaurant called Oliver's.
Yes.
And a gentleman named Arunash Brushas. They were the only two bartenders there. I joined the team at Acadia, and let me touch base on something that Jason Praw, my general manager at the time, said, and it was that we have to treat everyone who comes, no matter what kind of food that we were doing, and we were doing elevated, food. We have to treat every guest the exact same, because you never know how many people have saved up for 2 months to come here.
Yep.
Who could just blow money and go there 3 times a week.
Yeah.
What guests are celebrating when they're in the building, whether it be like a death, a mourning, a celebration of a job promotion, maybe losing a job, and like driving hospitality with that mindset, right?
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me. Also, Jason Pratt told me that wine is the second sauce, and that stuck with me too.
That's sick.
Yeah, wine is the second sauce.
Yeah.
Right? Going back on wages though, I recently was working at John's Food and Wine, where the gratuity is automatically applied to the tab, and people.
It was great to see you there, by the way.
Oh, I'm glad to have served
cute
you.
Moment. Cute moment.
People initially were coming into the space with this preconceived notion of like, maybe I'm not going to receive the experience that, when someone leaves gratuity, it's after they've had the experience, and then it's funny because people are like, I'll base my tip on like how the experience goes, right? But for me, it's like, well, I'm always going to at minimum leave 20%. And if they're the homies, like you're going up there to like 30%,
Yes.
Right.
I don't go out if I can't tip.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. So I saw the guests kind of come in and John's was being written about, and guests would say, so yeah, we read about you. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, amazing. Like, we're excited to have you. And just like with the expectation that service was not going to be up to par because we didn't have servers there.
Yeah.
Right. So I took that as an opportunity to be what I've always been in the industry, and it's absolutely engaging. Learning about the food, learning about the beverage program, and making someone feel like they're in a safe space. Like to get what they want to eat, to drink what they want to drink. And I feel like I was successful at doing that there.
I feel
but
like
not everyone has that mindset. And you're right. Well, because gratuity is split between front and back of the house there, you're not making what you would make if you were just working front of the house, where gratuity is, you're tipping out. Exactly.
Yeah.
You're tipping out your servers or your servers assistants and your bussers. There I had, and most people, you have to have understanding that it feels more ethical.
Yes.
It felt ethical to me to know that the guys in the back of the house and I were making an equal amount of money together.
Yes.
And I felt good working in that space. And that drove me to deliver.
You're a unicorn.
Yeah.
Because
He's amazing.
that's how I feel. But I've also been lucky enough to work in places that split the tips amongst everyone in house.
Yeah.
Like in places that have a restaurant component to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, I don't know. I think it's because I come from back of house that I was like, this is nice, but that ain't what was happening back there for 10 years.
Absolutely.
I was making dog shit money and like, but loving what I was learning and like the experiences that I got to have because of working in fine dining. It's all like paparazzi. All the flash is like fucking you up and you're like, oh my God, this is the life. This is ironic
Shout
as
out
hell
to
right
Alex
now.
on the flash. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.
Yes.
But you're like, like your girl Chapel Roan dies
not my
slowly on the end.
That's not my
The
girl.
minute you sent me a song to listen to
That's not my
by
girl.
Chapel Roan, and I was like, you are not the first and you will not be the last to try to get me on this train. I like when she talks
it was a
words,
moment
but her
in
music
time.
is queer
It was a
Taylor
moment in time.
Swift.
It was a
and
moment
it's
in
still
time.
not for me.
It was a moment in time. You know, because
So
what I was
what
trying
you're
to
saying
do was
is if I
share
get
it
you
around.
tickets for Chapel Roan for your birthday, you
I
don't
am
want them?
not going.
Okay, good.
Max will go.
Yeah. Okay. Never
I'll
mind.
join you.
I'll
Max,
go.
I'll join you.
Yeah, I was like, there.
I
there we
mean,
go.
like,
there we go.
no tea, no shade. Pop off. I think that woman deserves to wait. I don't actually know the gender situation of Chapel, so I don't know what's going on with them. But you deserve to be out in the world doing hood rat shit with your hood rat friends and no one bother you. 110%. Your music just is not for me.
That's fair.
Love, peace, and chicken grease. For
You know,
real.
and also, just on that very quick topic.
Random tangent.
I recently had a lunch with my mom because for those that know, she, retired to, the dusty hills of Arizona, right? And so, yes, great for her
Dusty.
conceptually. Yes.
I knew that's what you were saying. You shady bitch.
I hope she has a vacuum.
Love it.
Yes, right. It's a lot going on. But anyhow,
Dyson.
I'm not going to get into specifics, but she's no longer going to be staying there after retiring there and having property. And, we just...
Is she coming back? Eye contact?
So it's a thing and it's a whole process because
meet her?
Arizona is fine.
Can I meet her?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes. But it was really, really interesting because we've been having some family things and, and also just on the other side of my family as well. And we were going through just kind of the journey of life, right? Because she is older. I'm obviously older. And one of the things was discovery. Right. So she said to me, she's like, so how did you get here to like all of the things that you were doing? Because as present as I was for our lovely day together, it was still very much a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I was like, we're doing our best. And she asked me about L2O, right? It was interesting to where we were talking about my time and kind of like scalability within the industry, but then also understanding how to bridge those opportunities for other people as well. And she's like, well, that is a really beautiful explanation of what hospitality is.
Yeah.
And this was right after she was about to lose her mind from this gentleman that was like ordering a drink over her shoulder at a bar. She's like, I was just like, Mom, you need to chill because we're seated at a bar. Okay. Like if he constantly asks you, excuse me, I need to order a drink, you're also going to get aggravated. You're a table type of woman.
Yeah.
I'm a barfly.
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah,
you know, like
absolutely.
it's very different.
You got to pick and choose.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's fine. But the reason why I bring all of that up is because I have felt, and it's been really beautiful to watch in practice across the board, how hospitality has really molded people's career trajectories.
Yes.
In ways that aren't traditional within the overview of the industry.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just being a busser, being a line cook,
No.
being, in a support role, being a beverage director. And then, there's always the joke. It's just like, the top ascension within the industry.
Real estate.
Yes.
It's like
The industry to real estate pipeline is real.
it's so real. Yeah, it's so real. So, and
I don't see it in my future though, but I respect the hell out of it.
I think it's I think it's absolutely amazing. I'm just like, my realtor, whenever that's a thing.
I know two
that would be
servers.
That would be the guy that I worked with at Small Bar.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's like
Beautiful.
two dudes
Full
from two
circle moment.
servers
Yeah.
from Blackbird are real estate agents now. Love them,
Yeah.
but that's like, it's the pipeline. It's real.
yeah, and I'm just like, that's the cap, right? They're like,
What's after
like-
this?
they're like, we made it. And also, one thing, just as we get back on task here,
It's all on task.
I definitely want to ensure that we're talking about unfortunate leadership behavior in this industry as well, which I know is a spicy topic.
Oh, it's so spicy.
And we
But
already
can talk about it.
alluded. I mean, I would absolutely love to, because I think that it's value, and also creates the foundation of appreciation for those that are trying to commit to do it right.
Yeah.
And also to promote advocacy and agency for others that want to make their environment better.
Yeah.
It's very much so a double-edged sword in the industry to like speak openly about experiences that weren't so good, but also at the same time speaking about the experiences that benefited you, whether it be like your learning experiences. For myself, I've learned a lot from a lot of amazing people, but I've also come across people who are resistant to providing like a really good guest experience. And they're like, well, I'm the shit. I'm a mixologist. I make the best fucking drinks. I'm going to make all the money. That type of attitude. And
Right.
I didn't really vibe with that, and there are plenty of people.
How does one vibe with that?
I think there's a crew of people that people who share the same mindset will get along. Yeah, and even if everyone is ego driven and they are the mixologist, there's a group of people that are meant for each
Wait,
other.
no,
right?
I understand this. It's like Real Housewives.
That's exactly what it is,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
You find that vibrational pattern that you can ride with, and like
Yeah.
that becomes your crew. And I very much so didn't enjoy being a part of like that. I'm saying this all because I'm very much outspoken on my social media. And I will hint at things that maybe have occurred within myself or experiences that I've had, or in sitting with a colleague that's like, hey, I just like really need to vent. This is my experience that happened. And then I'll have these, like, I have a million thoughts, and I just happen to use my Instagram story as like a personal diary sometimes.
Yes.
I love that.
And I'm very vulnerable on there. And I think that I honestly believe that that's a strength that most people don't have in terms of being in the industry and talking about some of these negative experiences. So much so that someone recently, I was having a conversation with them. It's a pretty intense conversation, pretty heated conversation. And they looked at me and said, you'd be much more successful if you didn't post on social media. And I was like, in this day and age, I'd rather be vulnerable and speak openly about both sides of the coin.
Yes.
Because there are many people that can relate.
Yes.
And also, that's such a... And I'm
Toxic
not,
thing to say.
I'm not even going to like apologize for my language, but that's such a fucking bullshit thing to say to anybody.
Crazy.
Like, I mean, in as much of our world continues to become digitized, right? And then especially with like AI and all of this like just living through unprecedented times. Like, Jesus Christ, I'm so fucking tired. But don't get me started. I was like, don't get me started.
I don't even remember some of the shit that happened last year
because it's just it's too much. It's
too compounding.
Exactly. It's way too fucking much. But also, I think that it's really important for people to create and foster community in any way that they are able. Whether it is online, whether it is, via like run clubs or, people that are coming into your place of employment, your business, your bar,
so,
like all of those things.
I thought you were about to be like cults. Like, I'm like, don't do that. I mean, if sometimes cults work for some people. No tea, no shade, but like mostly they're not good if they're cults.
No, but I didn't mention that. You did.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I am the skeptic in this relationship. I'm like, why would anything good happen?
I often run with this quote that I am my own PR team. And if you aren't representative of yourself and your strengths and your experiences, then who is going to be, right? Because I can hire somebody to like sit down with me. You don't want anybody
speaking for you. Exactly. And that will go back to a whole ass thing that we had already talked about.
I honestly tell you, in doing brand work for the last almost 8 years now, social media has made me incredibly successful. Why? Because when you have your friends who are tending bar or businesses that are creating new dishes, right? Restaurants or whatever it may be, like openly speaking about these places and my positive experiences at these places has built this connection in which for me, it was never about, hey, can I land these sales as someone who is in brand sales, right? But it's, hey, where am I going to find like the genuine connection with people that I want to work with, right? Because there's more value. There's definitely a deeper human value in that than just going everywhere and landing every single account, right?
Yeah.
And social media has made me successful in literally just tagging a business. And that business sharing that story on Instagram, and then other businesses seeing it and reaching out to me and saying, hey, I see you're running around with these agave distillates. Would you mind coming into our business and tasting us and educating us on them? So, in fact, I have been successful on social media.
Yes, exactly. I was just like, well, there it is. And also, one thing before I have an additional question. I feel like the timing of this conversation is exactly where it needed to be, because you used to be a part of a brand that I am not going to directly speak of, but there was an individual, well, there were multiple individuals that I knew within the organization, and they were absolutely fantastic. And there was someone that I ran into quite recently, and it was just quick in passing. We're like, hey, it's great to see one another. Like, I love everything that you're up to. And that is why timing is so unique and so fascinating, because that individual that I ran into unfortunately lost his position within that brand.
Absolutely.
The day after we saw one another.
Absolutely. There's a few different layers to
this onion.
I think well, when we start to work with brands that we become heavily involved with via the community that may make the spirit, the families, the grandmothers that are cooking for you while you're visiting that land, the kids that you're teaching English to and they're teaching you Spanish, the wives and the brothers and the fathers and everyone that's taking you into their literal home to give you some sort of hospitable experience and for you to take a piece of that with you. You come back to the States and you almost have this invigorating sensation to stand and deliver for that community.
Yes.
Because you see, hey, this brand is actually supporting real people and I want to fucking kick ass for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And there's it's this like very thin line of you being a professional for yourself and knowing that when you have a brand gig, it's not a branded gig, right? Like at the end of the day, no matter who you are working for, the owner of the company owns the company, to put it like very basically, right?
Yeah.
And in the States, you are incredibly disposable based on the trends of business, right? So, I feel very deeply for that person because it happens to be my best friend.
Yeah.
But there's a big disconnect in ownership and not seeing the value of people on the market. This is happening across the board with brands,
we
right?
literally were talking about
a
this
lot of people
today.
are not really investing much into brand representation and brand advocates, but reinvesting that money into maybe the distribution company that's selling your spirit and incentivizing the people, the 10, 20, 30 people that may be representing the brand, taking that one person's salary and putting it onto the map for investing in incentives. But that doesn't speak like heart and soul of the brand for me. When you have that one like pivotal person, those two pivotal people on the market that have had the experiences with the back end side, the production of your brand, like I said, these families that are creating it, then you have someone that can really project that story very passionately to your consumers. And I think that there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were about to, when you started talking about like getting to know these people intimately, I was like, oh no, please tell me that this doesn't end with a bunch of bullshit. And it kind of did, but in a very expected way where, like we spoke about earlier, like the disconnect between what has systematically been set up for business, but not including the humanity of it all.
Oh, yeah.
And it all being encased in a bubble of hospitality is really like piece de resistance.
Yeah.
Like you're just shitting in your own litter all the fucking time.
I've been in that position before, like I look back at the last 8 years of my life in terms of brand representation and one thing that was important for me as someone who is representing brands is understanding that you can potentially create a brand within yourself.
Yeah.
And then so we'll get into like the health and wellness aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for now, I on the market, I realized that in my first couple of years of sales, I was like going out and doing the happy hours and staying out till 3 a.m. and it was advantageous to like see 15, 16, 17 accounts a day. But I was really much so like the last individual we're speaking of, I was really invested in sharing this story about real people coming from a real place who are really building a community, much like we can build a community out here.
Absolutely.
So I found that a lot of the pathways that I was leaving behind, a couple things were important to me. Never burn a bridge within someone that you're doing business with. There's ways to delicately say, hey, like maybe this isn't going to work out, or this isn't what aligns with the brand. And I'm also
thinking of an absolute
just
nightmare
treat people kindly, right? So I took my knowledge of what I learned at Acadia and Do Sex and Punch House when I opened that, and the Promontory when I opened that. And I took all of that. How would I want, and being someone who came from the bar, how do I relate with people that I am selling to in a way that is human and not in a way that is mechanical and like more in depth? And that brings me to what I'm doing now with this whole Shifties project that's coming up very, very soon.
Love it. So before we get into that, what I would like to hear from you is just from your experience in a multitude of different concepts and obviously brands as well. What advice would you give to hospitality leaders about maintaining authenticity in a competitive market?
The first thing that I always lead with is the same thing in hospitality that I learned. If you don't know the information, don't bullshit people.
Yes.
Correct.
Right? 100%. Yeah. The best way to make someone feel comfortable is to have them understand and feel confident that you understand and know. Right? So in terms of like the competitive market with leaders, I think genuine authenticity goes very far. I think you have to kind of be synonymous with what brand you are representing and your own character, and how can you link those two things together to emulsify into something that is going to give to any guest that comes into your space, right?
Space you said emulsify.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. You have to be like a good blend of your work and your personal life, but you can't draw too much from yourself. And I'm going to say this, and it's spicy, but you can't also give too much of yourself to your employer.
Oh, no.
Also that.
Absolutely not.
Also that.
There needs to be balance.
Yeah. But also, so Nariba, your response is like, that's spot on for you. However, that is not the typical response, because people lean into the, you can call it the Kool-Aid or the, family bullshit that the industry likes to throw around.
Your family.
Yes, when you're here, your family, but it was just like, you fuck up, you're out.
I literally had a conversation.
Yeah, but don't piss me off.
With a guest the other day who was asking me about transitioning from back of house to front of house, and how sustainable is a catering model if you're not working on tips and blah, blah. And I was like, listen, I feel like the idea of hospitality has been super inflated for a long time. And people no longer know what being hospitable means, because they think that every experience should be AI generated specifically for you, instead of realizing that in the situation, you are not the only person. We have made it so much about you are the only thing that matters right now in this time, that when people don't feel that same energy from the table next to them, they're like, why is this happening? It's because you made it this way. We no longer have the energy to do it on this mass level the way we used to, because we're concerned about Yelp. We're concerned about literally the internet has changed the way that people think that they should be experiencing life, because more often than not, people are not realizing that Instagram is not reality.
Oh, yeah.
And so
I say that very often. I'm like, all this shit I'm posting isn't real, y'all. It isn't real. Whatever I'm saying.
This is not real.
Take what you want from it for your personal life, but everything, we're all living in the Matrix. So.
Well, my favorite thing, just in regards to, specifically hospitality media, specifically with all of this shit, I think that it's absolutely amazing to where it's the reality is you're struggling to get up this hill, but then the edit is just and sometimes I just realize that the hill that I was climbing was simply my own attitude.
Exactly.
And I was like, get the fuck out of here. Okay. I was just set up that goddamn tripod. I was like, get out of my fucking face. It drives me insane. Stop stressing me out. This is insane. But so, God, don't get me started on
nervous breakdown in the middle of the day, cry in the walk, and it'll be okay.
But yeah, so before we get into kind of how we're going to tie this whole conversation up, I feel like a really beautiful segue is to talk about, not only are you verbal online, but you have such a beautiful relationship with your daughter.
Tell me about your child.
Best dad ever.
Yes, best dad ever. Wearing the hat literally right now. And I think that also ties into the sustainability within the industry as well, because that's...
Yeah, let's peel back the onion a little bit further. Because I think there's a lot of...
We're in ramp season now.
Yeah,
not spiritually, not seasonally.
I was like, wait a minute. It's
spiritually.
You're right. I thought that was spring.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. I love ramps. So, I'm wearing a hat that says best dad ever.
Yes.
My daughter got it for me for Father's Day. She is 5 years old. She is a personality. She not only
Let me
Max
see a
and I
picture.
both, like,
a lot
Let
of
me
people
see a
are like, "Oh,
picture."
I have the best kid ever," but I think what makes my kid so great is that we learn together,
Yes.
right? And I grew up in a household where I was just being taught by somebody who didn't
know.
people who didn't know,
Yes.
Right.
like emotionally,
But
spiritually,
they didn't know. They didn't have the internet.
yeah. I'm very fortunate. That's another thing I'm really happy about with like the internet, how accessible a lot of this information is, right? I think being obviously you want to be a best friend to your child and you want to be a parent, but I think my parents and parents before them were just very scared about transparency and vulnerability.
Yes.
And
Right.
like very much so led by ego and
Yes.
very much so disconnected by not untangling and unraveling these high tense emotions they were feeling and like projecting those thoughts and those emotions directly onto a child, right? So
Oh my God.
as an
Do
adult,
you have ethnic parents?
I do, yeah.
Crazy.
Wait a minute.
Wait a
What's
minute.
going
You're
on?
describing my life.
What's going on
So
here?
Camila Matias is her name. She's wonderful. I wear this hat with pride, and it's most people can say, well, I provide like financially for my child, and that makes me a good parent. And when someone asks me about my daughter and how my parenting style is, it is very much so gentle and very open and vulnerable. We talk about, I think most people and parents love to celebrate happiness in a home when a child feels happy. And describing all of those emotions and saying you did so good at this and that's why you feel this way, or you just won the race, you got first place, or you got straight A's on your report card, right? And then when something bad happens and the child feels anger and they feel sadness, there was at least for me in my childhood, there was a lot of reprimanding for me being upset, but not understanding my emotions. And of course, my parents didn't know how to unravel that. But for me as a parent, when my daughter has these, she may have an outburst and we have disagreements, it's important for me to talk about and untangle with her why she may be feeling those emotions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why she may be feeling overwhelmed. Why, you can't eat all of the candy, but I'm okay with you having
She
some
can
of
eat
it,
all
right?
of the candy. She's a princess.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. We talk about moderation a lot, and I talk about that aligns with
That
my
sugar
talk
moderation,
about,
honey.
yeah. I talk about that moderation in the industry too, right? With moderation in how much you're giving to your employer physically, spiritually, emotionally. Moderation in how much you may be consuming after work because you've just dealt with other people's emotions.
Yes.
A passionate manager.
A passionate manager.
Passionate, right?
Come through, diplomacy.
You are so demure.
Passionate owners.
so
You know what I mean?
Mindful.
Your coworker who is like maybe said something that's triggered some kind of trauma in you in the industry you had 5 years ago. Your back of the house staff just like giving you flack for potentially ringing the wrong thing in. You are often taking in so much of that energy within yourself as an industry professional, and then like leaving after to imbibe, and that leads you to imbibe more. So there's moderation, right? This moderation of knowing when it's okay for you to like take a step back and just breathe.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Finishing things off with my daughter, yeah, she's absolutely outstanding, and we have a close relationship in that I want my child to feel safe.
Yes.
That's it. Safety is important, and not just safe physically, because she'll look at me and be like, Dad, you're strong, And she'll be like, this other parent, he's got a big belly. And I'm like, that doesn't mean he's not a good parent. First and foremost. She's like throwing those things around. Yeah. And I try to teach her, I'm like, hey, we're not like, we never comment on like people's physical appearance, because that person can be the happiest person that you've ever met. And their physical appearance means absolutely nothing to how they feel emotionally. And I want you to understand spiritually how you're feeling, right? So my daughter is tremendously beautiful. She's going to be a gorgeous woman. She is strong in her body, but for me, the priority is to teach her how to regulate emotionally.
Yeah. Which is not a thing that Black and brown folk tend to teach their children.
Yeah.
Right?
And, I've in my adulthood, I often say this, like I've been the villain in situations that I couldn't understand at the moment. And it took therapy, and it took reading books, and it took like being vulnerable to like touching grass. It took being vulnerable to taking in some of this content to really unravel and understand, why do I think the way that I think sometimes, right?
That is,
and that's important for me to teach my daughter before she becomes an adult, so she can say when something comes up that may trigger her, that may make her upset, she can say, you know what, that doesn't actually it's not of any importance to me in my current state, in my current body.
Oh, I love it. So, as we are coming up on time, I would love to segue into what you're doing now, what you're focusing on now, and also truly the importance of being mindful of your physical self.
So I have been an athlete my whole life, and I loved movement. I love the feeling of like losing your breath when you're doing a hard run, or challenging yourself in a workout, or Pilates, or getting into a stretch and getting that depth. This relates to life, right? In yoga, whatever it may be. And I think there is a direct correlation with your mental health and your physical health. A lot of people talk about, going to therapy, and I advocate for it. Like, go to therapy 100%, but allow yourself a space to experience stillness. And like, stillness isn't just like sitting still and breathing. You can practice stillness while you are going on a walk, right? You can practice stillness while you're at the gym and challenging yourself and lifting weights with your headphones on, right? It's the experience of like getting inward within your body, pushing your physical limits, but also knowing that you're practicing. Yes. Also knowing that a lot of
Naripa, you'll be fine. You'll be just fine.
Well, here's the thing, and I also realize I
go to the gym.
Yeah.
I just.
It's tough to wrap those things around. And this is going to bring me to one of the more important segments of what we're doing now, right? So when I say we, I mean me and Nicole Mendoza and Brian Enyart, the chef at Lenya Brava. Nicole owns Big Yoga. I was sitting, and I've been like working out, and I was going to get my certification, and I have like, I paid for all of the application and the books. And then I fell into love with the hospitality industry again. And I was like, oh, that could get put on the back burner, but there is still a love for like physical movement for me, and a very important part of my life. Right. So much like yourself, and others out there, I was like, wait a minute. Inviting people to like come and work out isn't an easy task. Some people like are intimidated by the gym. They're intimidated by even going to work out outside. How do we take what I want to do for like spirituality, emotional health, and physical health, and kind of go back to basics?
Yes.
So we're all familiar with like getting off of the shift and having a shifty, right? I
mean, this is a post-shift conversation, so absolutely.
So myself and Nicole sat down, and I was like, hey, Nicole, I sat in one of her sound healing breathing practices with my daughter, who sat 30 minutes completely silent, just breathing. And then at the end of this experience, I said, how do you feel? And she looked at me with her like beautiful eyes, and she was like, calm. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I was like, Nicole, you are a magician. She was like, that was, and I brought my daughter around people, and like someone like Nicole is very radiant. She's someone that you almost instantaneously feel safe around. And I was like, how do I work with Nicole and with the industry to show that like we don't have to go and work out and like run a 5K. We don't have to go like run a mile. We don't even have to go walk. What is the most basic thing that we can teach the industry to be mindful? So if I created this event, which I'm calling Shift Ease, right? It's
okay.
Here we go. Now it's full circle, right? Yeah. So Shift Ease is going to be like
we love a double entendre.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's non-alcoholic.
Terms of service.
Yes.
Yeah. It's non-alcoholic, which I have a responsibility to like the community and knowing that I'm always posting that I am at the gym. How can I give back to this industry who needs programs like this,
yes.
right? And mindful programs. We're sitting and we're gonna breathe, but we're breathing with intention.
Absolutely.
And so that was the whole idea behind it. The format is going to be like a shift, right? So we're going to have people come in for a happy hour or family meal, which is going to be non-alcoholic beverages, some teas, hydrators. And then we're going to go into a pre-shift for 10 to 15 minutes with a special guest. And that special guest is Brian Enyart, who the day before the event is going to have completed his 3rd marathon. Right?
It's amazing.
How is someone who has ran in his own business and saw success and failure, who is running a kitchen and a whole team now, how is he balancing working in the industry back of the house as the head chef?
It's crazy.
And practicing running a marathon. And where is he finding that balance?
Exactly.
And that's what he's going to talk about.
Yeah. Carlos, how was your time with us?
Yeah, what'd you
Amazing.
think? Oh, yay.
Great. And also, please drop some dates to where people can come and support and all of the things.
Yeah. So the 1014 Shifties is completely booked. But we're going to do this once a month. And once a month, we will have a different special guest that is very much so aligned in their emotional, spiritual, and industry life for them to talk about how they do it and how they do it successfully, right? But to go to something that isn't driven by alcohol.
Yes.
A non-alcoholic event where you're learning how to breathe and you're just having a discussion and you're having a conversation about the industry in general. And it's absolutely free. I think that's the most important part.
That's nice. That's real nice.
Oh, Carlos.
You're singing
Where
the
do
song
the people find you?
of the people. Yeah.
If you would like to be found on social media.
So my Instagram is _C.Matias, MATIAS _.
Love it. Well, as we're wrapping up, I just wanted to kind of mention what we were drinking a little bit earlier, which was the Golden Barley 17 Soju. And a little bit about that is Golden Barley Soju is an all-natural soju made from barley, no rook, and water. It has notes of pickled plum, sweet potato, and dried fruit. That was in addition to the Arete Tequila, which is an independently family-owned tequila distillery that is non-additive and uses their family's estate-grown agave, and plum shrub. So one of the things that I want to talk about as we wrap up is this whole idea of brand community, right? So Terms of Service is approaching our 4th year, and we have done live episode recordings. We've done, like media coverages. We've done all of these things. But for us, I think that we are most impactful to showcase brands that align with the context of our mission and again, allow the industry and consumers to, again, find themselves where they're at, right? So we just want to throw that out there as like a very supreme thank you. Also, we have Lavelle Miller here, who I am so excited. So thank you so very much for the product, my friend. I can't completely turn around because I have to make sure that I'm talking into the mic. Also, Ashley Lindsay, I already gave you a shout out again, but I'm going to do it once more. And also, my good friend, Chio, who owns Coquetel Collective, for her support as well. And also shout out to our friends at Corey Ice, which is a second chance program that really specializes in not only having a fantastic product, but also really creating opportunities for those that have been incarcerated.
Yes.
So, and they also cut their ice with Japanese steel, which is the same steel that they use to make samurai swords. So I find that as very interesting and very unique. But then outside of that, always and forever, special shout out to our partners here at Blind Barber Chicago for hosting this necessary conversation. I am Justin Arnett Graham, and you can find me on Instagram at ThisIsBiko.
And my name is Nariba Shepherd. You can find me on Instagram at Rebaru, Rebaru, and we'll see you around.
Peace.